Good evening, everybody. This is Cheyenne, your host of Dragonfly Discussions podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for not being a part of what else you could be watching tonight. The orange one, the orange one that's in office is speaking tonight, and I think it's wonderful if you turn your channel because he cares about ratings. Turn your channel and watch something healthier, such as this podcast, animals, a movie, anything you can do to stand up and not listen to him. We'll get caught up on the news, anyways. If you watch the news or on social media, you'll get caught up. Um, and yes, my hair is curly. I am wearing it natural. I don't really ever share my curly hair. It's just not, it's frizzy in real life. I don't know if it looks frizzy, but it is pretty. And a lot of people tell me it's pretty, but I'm just not as used to wearing it all the time. But it is nice not to blow dry my hair all the time and have it look like this. So you're not imagining I did not get a perm. But yes, this is my natural curly hair. So we are in chapter 7, which is a really cool chapter. I'm really proud of chapter 7. It took me a bit on how I was going to close the book, because at some point you got to close the book, and I didn't know when to close the book, but it seemed this was the right time to close the book, and put it off to print and set it off and say, okay, this is the final draft. I'm done. So I'm really happy about chapter 7 because I did go through a lot. Once I wrote this book, I went through even more trials that I didn't ever thought I'd ever experience. But it happened, and I'm still standing. I'm still here. So you're going to read chapter 7, which is To Thine Own Self Be True, which is a passage from Shakespeare. And my dad would always, he's the one that brought it up to me in the first place, I think when I was struggling during my addiction. And so I've always gravitated towards it. And it's always been something that I've stood on, as to not compromise yourself, to not compromise your priorities, your principles, your goals. Stay focused, keep your standards high, and to thine own self be true. You know yourself better than anybody else. So I figured this was a great title for this chapter, chapter 7. So we're in the final chapter of my book, Dragonflies and Demons, which you can find it on Amazon or Google search for the platform that you prefer. It's in all forms: audio, paperback, hardcover, and ebook. So we're on page 235, subchapter When in Hawaii. In September 2017, I decided to treat myself to a trip to Hawaii for my 40th birthday. The first part of my stay was in Kona for a couple of days. Then the second part of my stay was in Hilo for the remainder of the week. So just a week, and I split it in half between Kona and Hilo. Because Maui, it was Hawaii, the big island of Hawaii is huge. So I wanted to kind of see both sides. While staying in Kona, I was able to rent an Airbnb where I had a private pool all to myself. I went exploring all the beaches and lava rocks that were scattered across the island. It was incredibly muggy warm, making it quite difficult to cool down. Oh my gosh. And it's interesting too. It's so hot. It's so muggy. I mean, but because you're so close to the equator, I don't know if this is just me, but we would try to have a few beers, have some hard drinks. I would try to, get my drink on, and I couldn't get a buzz. I was like, this is weird. I should be able to have a buzz with all that I drank. Anyways, and I did slip there. I said we, because I kept all this part out, I believe. I didn't mention her, but I went with a friend who we got in an argument and she was nasty. And so we canceled halfway, flew back to United States, flew back to California, dropped her off, and then came back to the island to finish off my vacation. So I probably spent just as much time in the airplane as I did on land on the island. But yes, that was what happened, truly what happened. So I kept that part out because she was non-important to the story, and I just didn't feel a need to talk about her. So I had the opportunity. So all of this was my planning. That girl was just like a tag along. She bought her own ticket. She paid for pretty much everything. I paid for the Airbnb. She didn't have to pay me the back, but I pretty much paid for everything. It was my birthday. Gift to myself. I had the opportunity to attend a beautiful luau, like a real luau. And if you've been following, I have Hawaiian. I had a Hawaiian best friend, Milani, who you might have heard her name, Milani, throughout other chapters. I mean, chapter 2 at least. I know chapter 3 at least. All throughout the beginning parts, even now. So Milani's been my best friend. So she's like born Hawaiian, not born Hawaiian, but she has Hawaiian descent through her parents. And so she introduced me to all the world of Hawaiian culture, the food, the leis and making them, the dresses, the kimono. Is it a kimono? I don't know. It's like this dress that they wear. The hula dancing and the songs telling the stories of the island and how they came to be. So it's a very beautiful culture. And Milani and her family were very beautiful, very beautiful. And they made such delicious food. Oh, it was so amazing. So dinner had been prepared for all the guests after all the guests had watched the uncovering of the pig. So I bought myself a luau dinner that was oceanside, the ocean's in the background, and you got the stage and you got the tables. And so then before the whole luau, there was the uncovering of the pig, which is buried in the ground. And so I got to have a real experience of, well, not real, but I mean, as real as you could get, of a real luau. And the food, oh my gosh. It is a ritual where a pig is buried underground after being wrapped in huge banana leaves and laid upon hot coals. The pig then rests underground for about 12 hours while being cooked thoroughly. A while later, the Hawaiians dig up the pig while telling a story behind their ritual of a luau. They then cut it into pieces to be served to the guests. And it's this really elaborate luau. At least the one I went to was really elaborate. It was put on like by a hotel out in front of their hotel space, and all these beautiful white tables and chairs, and this big spread that was just open of food, just galore. The entire spread was so amazing. All along the long table were authentic homemade Hawaiian foods. It is a tradition where everyone brings a food item each, and feeding the people is a celebrated social community event. The pig is then served on a huge platter and placed on one end of the table among the other meats. And a lot of this knowledge came firsthand from my friend Milani, because I really wanted to talk about this luau experience, and I wanted her hands-on personal family experience. She knows how she's Hawaiian. So why wouldn't I consult her and get every detail and explain it to me so that I could explain it to you? So that's where all of this is coming from, is from her, Milani. The variety of dishes in the spread include lau lau, a slice of pork wrapped in taro, which taro is like a leaf, and tea leaves steamed. So they're like soft and they wrap around. Lomi lomi salmon is a very salty fish served with onions and tomatoes. Poi, which I'm not a fan of really any of these things so far. I've tried them, but poi was also on the table, a must-have among Hawaiian cuisine. Poi is actually a paste-like substance that works to balance your palate from all the salty dishes. So it's kind of like a mint or something. Like in really fancy other cultures, they'll have you drink water or put a little salad, or they'll have you change up your palate so that you get the richness of the next dish that you're about to eat. Some cultures do dessert in the middle and salad at the end. They add wine or, something to wash your mouth out with. It's very, very common. Very, very common to do that. It is also considered a sacred addition to any meal and is very nutritious. So it's loaded with all kinds of protein and probably fiber. I don't even know what it's made of, but it's like this purpley gray paste. Of course, there was poke served too, along with another type of fish. So a lot of fish. The Hawaiians love fish. And they love pork. Spam. They like spam. Then there was my favorite, the manapua. Manapua is a dumpling with barbecued pork in it. It's like a pork dumpling. That's our term. It's also known as pork buns. Pork buns. The standard Hawaiian white rice and macaroni salad were also part of the lavish spread. So those were like my go-to. I love the pork buns, and I like their chicken. They did, and some of the pork I ate, but I'm just not a real big pork eater. But I had to try everything at least. It was really an amazing feast. I had my plate and headed over to my spot at the table in front, which was very close to the stage. Like I said, I got really good seats. As I enjoyed my delicious meal, looking out over the ocean, which was right behind the stage, so I'm in perfect position to have the most best meal on the ocean in Hawaii. Where am I? Oh, as I enjoyed my looking out, okay, I was entertained by the Hawaiian dance presented before me. I felt complete, as if I was in one of God's sacred places. There is something about Hawaii and the islands which can take your breath away while refreshing your spirit at the same time. The ladies and gentlemen that came on stage were adorned with beautiful handmade garments and barely covered anything on their bodies. Like they were the hula dancers and all the Hawaiian dancers, right? And the men are obviously shirtless with just something around their waist, and the women have barely a covering, and they've got these huge, beautiful headdresses. And so the headdresses were immaculate and intricately designed. Every move that they made with their bodies was completely representative of the story. And that's true. Like all of their movements and how they do like it's almost like sign language. Like they do waves, and then like they'll do the island, and they'll tell the story about the king of the island and the people, and they'll just dance and tell the story with their bodies and with their hands, and with the song as well. But most of the time it's in Hawaiian. So the music vibrated through my body, and I felt one with the island. The traditional Hawaiian dance is a form of communication according to history. The dance focuses on telling the story of how the islands came into existence and the story of Hawaiian gods that protected these islands. It was an incredibly moving experience overall. The next day, I ventured over to the Hilo side of the island. So now we're going on the other side of Hawaii. With my rental car, I drove approximately 3 hours to the other side of the island where my hotel was located. It was a spectacular drive through the emerald green mountains with their luscious topography and bright pink flowers. I passed through sugarcane fields and sensational waterfalls. Soon I arrived at my hotel, and that's not all. There was a lot of lava, like black lava, and it almost looked like you were on Mars. It was weird. It was just miles and miles of just black lava, like just already formed and hard, not red hot or anything. It was just all just rocky and just black, and that was old lava. But there was, once you get past all that, you get into this really green area on the Hilo side, and it's so different. It's so different. Let's see. Oh, let's see. We're at the hotel. Soon I arrived at the hotel. It was located along the ocean and had all the amenities one could wish for when traveling. So no longer at an Airbnb, right? I came back and put myself in a really nice hotel that was oceanfront and had an ocean view and everything. When I arrived, the valet came to take my bags and park my car. Ooh, that was pretty cool. Then I was taken to my room, which was absolutely breathtaking. I walked into my room to see a panoramic view of the entire Hilo Bay. I didn't even think it was going to be that great, but it was. The window was huge. It was like almost floor to ceiling, and it was huge. And you just opened up the drapes or whatever, and you just could see the whole entire Hilo Bay. I was like, wow, this is a really great room. I had a huge so the window. I immediately laid down on the luxurious bed and soaked up the beauty of the place. Yeah, literally, I just fell on that bed and was like, I am in heaven. Hilo was so much greener and prettier than Kona. I felt like I was a queen in Hawaiian heaven. During my days in Hilo, I explored everything: waterfalls, volcanoes, and the local zoo. I soaked up the sun and snorkeled along the shallow bay. The ocean water was warm, just like a bath, as I floated on the surface with a drink in hand, looking up into the expansive sky, thanking God all for that I had. I felt so at peace, proud, and utterly grateful. Although I was alone, I didn't feel lonely. I felt confident in myself and knew that God was with me. And what I mean is now, like I had shared, first part of this vacation, I left it out, but I went with a friend and it didn't work out. So then I came back to the island by myself, which was a huge adventure to do by myself. So I was like, first time doing something this big by myself. But I didn't feel alone. I was like, I don't know. I stuck with my plans and I made the best of it. And I just didn't focus on being alone. The fact that I didn't have somebody with me. You're never really alone. There's all kinds of angels and whatnot with us. It was important. So I talk about this Pastor Tim in my rehab when I was in New Life for Girls, back in 2003 to 2005, but I met him in like 2004-ish, 5. Yeah, because I graduated New Life in 2005. So I had to have met him in 2005 in Chicago. And he was a pastor in Chicago at a church, Tim Waugh. And he prophesied that I was going to write this book. He's the one that told me, you're going to write a book. And I had no idea how that was even possible, because I had no desire to write a book. No desire. So we've stayed friends over the years since graduating and whatnot. And so I decided when I'm in Hawaii, because he's now in Hawaii, he now has his own church It's called CrossNet Ministries. And he's now leading a church over there in Hilo, Hawaii. So I figured I'm this close. I got to see you. So this is what that's all about. During my days in Hilo, I already read that. It was important that I reunite with my old friend, Pastor Tim, whom I met in Chicago years back, who had prophesied over me. He now had his own church in Hilo, Hawaii. We kept in touch all throughout the years, and I was excited to see him again. It had been almost 10 years since our last meeting. The day finally came, and we met up for breakfast. After a hearty breakfast, he proceeded to show me around Hilo, as well as a few unique beaches where the locals usually went. So he's giving me an insight to what the locals, go to and experience. He took me to his church, and together we prayed at the altar. I could feel a heavy weight being lifted from me, and my hope was renewed. Unfortunately, our time had come to an end, and we had to say our goodbyes. It was a very short visit because, again, I needed to drive back to the hotel and get situated. But I had such a wonderful time. We had lunch, and then we had ice cream, and we went to all these beaches and just sat and just was in the presence of such a beautiful, magical place. Such a beautiful place. And we crossed bridges. We took a lot of walks. It was neat. And talked and just caught up, The next day was my final day on the beautiful island of Hawaii. I got up extra early, packed up all my things, and headed down for breakfast. I found a little table outside, which seemed absolutely perfect. As I sat down, I looked around to soak up my very last moments in Hawaii, and all of a sudden, a rainbow appeared right before me on the horizon, like this gorgeous rainbow. And I have a picture of it in the middle of the book because it was just so beautiful. Where is it? There it is. You're not going to be able to see the colors, but that's it. And then there's a rainbow back in there. There's a rainbow just streaming. It was so cool. It was like coming out of the ground. Just, I don't know. It was amazing. Okay, where was I? So, and everybody loves rainbows. Who doesn't like rainbows? Where was I? Okay, there it is. All of a sudden, a rainbow appeared right before me on the horizon. It was the biggest rainbow I had ever seen in my life. It stretched from one side of the mountain to the other side of a different mountain. Like it was the biggest, fattest, color strong rainbow I'd ever freaking seen. And it went all the way across the green Hawaiian mountains. It was just incredible. I took a picture of the magnificent view, sat back and embraced such a glorious, rare occurrence. Then I grabbed my bags into the car and headed over to the airport. When I boarded the plane to return home, I could sense a new version of myself developing within me, and I welcomed it thoroughly. I was excited and hopeful again for the future. I waved goodbye to the beautiful island and greeted hello to a much more hopeful future. As I got back home, I went back to work at UPS to endure yet another busy season of the holidays. By then, my former boss, Dawn, had retired, and I had a new boss, Joyce. So Dawn was this most respectful man in HR in UPS and served a legacy of really good HR standing the principles, treating people with kindness, making sure the workers got their fair shake and weren't abused kind of in way. Like, he knew the contract. He knew how to talk to the managers. He knew how to talk to the union guy, lead Pete at the time. He knew how to really, really be an excellent HR representative. And we covered the entire Central Valley, which was Fresno, Visalia, and Bakersfield. And he retired, and that meant it was so scary for me. And then Joyce came in, and it just went downhill from there. I don't know how much I talk about it, but it just went downhill from there. Nobody wanted her to be in that position, and it was bad what she did when she was there. And it's crazy that she still works for the company. That lady is very crooked. Not a lot of people in the company liked Joyce, including me. Like, she had a bad reputation. She had quickly gained a reputation for being dishonest, dirty, and crooked throughout her years as a supervisor of the drivers. When the opportunity arose to get into HR, she raised her hand the highest. And there were so many other good candidates. There was Karen. I really wanted Karen. God. Ugh. Thus, she, Joyce, was promoted as the new HR supervisor and my boss. It didn't take too long before she became a very harsh and critical boss. She micromanaged me in everything and wouldn't even allow me to have time with the employees as they deserved. Ugh. In my 5.5-hour shift, the stress of working with her became intensely overwhelming for me, and full-time employment was still nowhere in sight. The workload kept piling higher and higher, and my stress level worsened. So she was a really hard boss to work for and under. And she tried to control me. She tried to limit how much time I was working with these drivers, because part of our job was running through the five seeing habits and the 10-point commentary, which is all driving skills that these drivers need to know in order to not kill someone or back into a wall or, drive these big ass vehicles. And so you have to know all this stuff to pass a test. And so I would spend like 30 minutes with them. 30 minutes. I'd take out maybe an hour or two, probably maybe an hour and a half. Spend with 3 people, 2 people. I didn't have all that much else to do, and that was part of my job. So it was really enjoyable to sit with them and see them memorize it. And they'd come back in and they'd memorize it and get more memorized. And then pretty soon they had it all down. And they would verbally say that stuff. The 5 keys, what is it? What did I just say? The 10-point commentary and the 5 seeing habits. And they're hard to memorize. But it's required. So, and then also I tried to apply for full-time positions in all the other centers. Like, I covered Fresno, Visalia, Bakersfield. So I tried to seek opportunity in Visalia at least, because I didn't mind to drive 45 minutes. And I felt like she blocked me every single time I tried to do that, because I scored well on all my AP tests, aptitude tests. There would be no reason not to take me, but I think she just wanted to not let me go, because she couldn't handle that HR office all on her own. In fact, well, I won't say too much, but maybe I will later if it comes back up. Let's see. So my stress level is worsening, right? I even went on stress leave. She was just max bad. She tried to make me cover my tattoo back here on my neck. And I'm like, my hair covers it. And then if I wore my hair up, nobody's seeing it of the public. The rule was in the handbook was, if your tattoos show and you're wearing the uniform and you have a tattoo showing, then to the public, then you can't have that. Well, the drivers now have tattoos all over the place, and that rule went out the door. But I never was with the public. I was always inside the warehouse, but she was trying to control me, telling me I had to cover my damn tattoo. And I'm like, biatch. And I did, because I didn't want to lose my job, and I even tried to fight it. I'm like, there is nothing in the management side of our policy of our dress that tells us that we have to cover. It's only for drivers because they're out in the public. And still, I lost. Like, she was such a bitch. At last, 2018 rolled around, and it was a fresh start for me. Together, Joyce and I pulled off another peak season successfully. And what I mean by a peak season is that's Christmas. That is hiring 200 helpers for Fresno, 150 for Visalia, maybe another 150 for Bakersfield. So that's almost 500 helpers I need to hire. And it starts in October. We have to have them all, end of September, because right after my birthday was just full on peak mode. And so we have to interview tons of people, and then make sure they fit in the geographics of zip codes, and then hire them, and then train them, and then hope that they stay on. Oh God, it was so hard. So it lasted pretty much from the end of September all the way to December, actually into January, because we had to wrap up all the rest of the Christmas gathering uniforms and making sure the final pays were done and all of that stuff. But I would go into full time during peak only. So I got like September, October, November, December. I got almost 4 months of full-time pay, which was really nice. But it was so hard, such hard work. I mean, my life was devoted nothing but peak season for all 3 centers. Let's see. However, I was determined to finally find a full-time position either within UPS or somewhere else entirely. Like, I couldn't no longer put up the stress, put up this bullshit for part-time. I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to find a full-time job because this is just going nowhere. I'm going nowhere here. And then working with that boss was obviously killing me. It was really killing me. She was such a witch. So I began to look for work and discovered my own progress was being blocked at UPS by my very own boss. Yes. I was too much of an asset for her to lose. She started to give me poor reviews and evaluations, which disqualified me for any type of full-time promotion in the company. Yeah, there'd be some slight little thing that I didn't do right or whatever, and it would mark me down, or I don't know. It's complicated in that company. It is so complicated. However, even as discouraged as I had become, I continued to stay in my part-time position, working hard to stay on top of things while still handling a lot of responsibilities. I had a lot of responsibilities at part-time. In April, I had to help my stepmother, move again as she left the Van Ness house and got into a smaller condo-like home still in Fresno. So after my dad passed in the house that I grew up in, she lived there for a couple of years. Then she moved into a house over on Van Ness Extension, really North Van Ness. And then that house wasn't working out for her anymore. So then she moved into a smaller condo to kind of condense things into like a 1-bedroom. That house was like a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yeah, 2-bath. It was a lot bigger for her to manage. So I helped her move all the time. There was no other child like my stepbrother, stepsister, her natural children to help her really. It was all me. So A few of her friends and I helped her move. Again, the other family members, like my stepbrother and sister, weren't available to help her. It was a tough task, but in just a few days, we packed, unpacked, and helped my stepmother move or make a permanent home in her beautiful new condo for the final years of her life. Toward the latter part of 2018, Jennifer, now my best friend at the time, lived in Chicago, Illinois. She wanted to move back to her home state, California. She's from here. Together, in just over a few months, we had formulated a plan to help her move. She was in an unhealthy relationship, which made her extremely unhappy. So she just was not happy with this guy she was with. He was kind of controlling. It just was not suitable for her anymore. She wanted to get out of the relationship and return home to be closer to her family. So I helped her by asking the landlord of my apartment complex. So the apartment complex, not the one I live in now, but just down the road, I lived in another one, and I asked the landlord, hey, do you have any vacant studios or apartments that, you could rent? I have a great referral, Jennifer, and then got her an apartment, basically. So much to my surprise, the landlord told me that a 1-bedroom unit would be available soon in the upcoming September. She informed her parents, and to her shock, her parents graciously paid the deposit and the first month's rent as well as to hold it. So this was really rad because they just dropped all that money and was like, yes, Jen, get back home. You don't need to be with him. We want you back home anyways. And so we made it happen. It was pretty cool. September arrived soon, and I had only 1 week of vacation to pick up Jennifer up in Chicago and make it back to California promptly. So what I had done was we had made all the arrangements all year in, what year is it? What year are we in? 2018? 2018. So we had made all the arrangements. I had scouted out hotels. I had scouted out all the plans. And so I knew that I needed to get there in Chicago, stay at a couple places at hotels because I stayed 2 nights and I drove all day long, stayed 2 nights, got to Chicago. We had to pack quick. Like we had to pack in like 3 hours because he was off to work. And we did all of this while he was at work, hoping that he wouldn't come back surprisingly. So she was already pretty much packed. So all we had to do was just load my car. So we quickly packed up my car, got the hell out of there, and then spent 2 other nights coming back to California. So it really took the whole week to get across country and back. It was so fun. Oh my God, it was so fun. I was excited to drive across the country through 7 states, all by myself, as I love to travel. I mapped out my entire route, booked the necessary hotels, and made a list of all the essentials. I knew that I had a long drive ahead of me, so I packed light to leave enough room for Jennifer stuff. Like literally, I just wore the same clothes. I just packed light just because I needed to just make room for her. So I just packed totally light. I can travel pretty well. Just give me a toilet. I can wear the same clothes. Give me some underwear. That's fine. So let's see. Pack light. I left early that morning around 5 a.m. and soon I was driving out of California and straight into Nevada. I hadn't been to Nevada in almost 20 years. Yeah, the last time I was in Nevada was, God, I think it was the year 2000 or no, it was in the 90s. It was in the 90s, and me and Brent, my heroin buddy then, we went to Vegas and tripped on acid and just lived like fear and loathing in Las Vegas. So it had been a long time since I had been to Vegas or driving through Vegas. Everything looked so different. The main highway now took you around the main strip of Las Vegas, whereas previously you had to drive through the main strip, which could take you a while sometimes. So, yeah, I was floored. I was like, what is this? We're not going straight through the strip? Now there's this whole highway that drives you around, and the strip's like right over there. That was gnarly. I didn't know that. The main highway now took you around the main strip of Las Vegas, whereas previously I was absolutely amazed at all the new changes I saw as I drove through the lively city that never sleeps. There was a whole new set of skyscrapers, hotels, casinos that had been built. I mean, 20 years, Vegas changes fast. I mean, it changed fast. My last adventure in the wild city was when I was 21. That's right. Okay, so I was 21. That's still in the 90s. When Brent and I took a trip for my birthday. Let's just say it was a fear and loathing kind of experience. Soon, a few hours later, I was in Arizona, where the beautiful Carmine Plateaus are. So now we're getting into some plateau-y, like type mountains off on the horizon. Ruby colored rock was sprawled out on the horizons as I entered Utah. It was my stop number one. So Utah was my stop number one to rest and stay at a hotel. And I found some cheap ass hotel on the side of the road. Like it was probably like $90 a month or $90 a night. I only needed to stay one night. All I need is a toilet and some water to wash my face and be on my way. And a bed. I could have slept in my car. But I didn't want to do that. I had made arrangements with my half brother, Tim, to meet me there. So Tim's over in Idaho. So Tim's living in Idaho and it's not too far from Utah. So I invite Tim and his girlfriend at the time. I'm not sure. He wasn't with the same person. No, he came by himself. No, he must have came. I think he might have came with his dad. But anyways, they came down, visited me. We had dinner, and they didn't stay because they had to leave the next day. So they stayed the night at a nearby hotel, and then they went back because it was a really short drive from where they're at. So my Tim, okay. I had made arrangements with my half brother, Tim, who would meet me there, who lived in Idaho. With the help of his adopted mom. Oh, he went with his mom at the time. Okay. That's right. Okay. They all met me in Utah. We had dinner, visited, and off I went to the hotel to crash as I had a long drive ahead of me the next day. So that was just all we had, was just that short little visit. The next morning I woke up and stepped outside to see the stunning sight of Auburn plateaus that were all around me as the sun broke open the crest. Like literally my hotel, and it was just a 1-floor hotel. And I walked out and like the sun was coming up over the plateaus and I had like this open far view of the plateaus. And it was just so stunning. It was just beautiful. I took a quick shower and got back on the road. I headed through Colorado. Colorado was amazing to drive through. The roads are so pristine and nice and paved, and the mountains. Oh my God. You feel like an ant driving through there, parts of it. It was gorgeous. So let's see. I was headed through Colorado, where I would get some rest again. However, Colorado was a bit different. Wait, what? Oh, I was headed through Colorado, where I would get some rest again in Nebraska. Sorry. Utah was much like Arizona. It had the same plateaus. However, Colorado was a bit different. Colorado was like nothing I'd ever experienced. The highways were clean and took you along the entirety of the Colorado River. That's right. It went all along the river. So you got to see, kind of like on your way to Tahoe, you're going along the river and it is just gorgeous. Got to be careful not to run off the road. It is so pretty. At times, it would be so high that I was able to see snow in September. Yes, we were up that high that there was snow in September. The jagged rocks and steep mountains swallowed up my vehicle in such a way that I felt like an ant on earth. I absolutely love the experience of traveling through Colorado. Oh my God. If I ever get to go skiing there someday. Before I knew it, I was in Nebraska, where the land is flat, covered entirely in crops. Like, talk about a boring state to drive through. Nevada is pretty hard too, but Nebraska was so boring. The longest stretch seemed to be into Nebraska and extending into Iowa. The land surrounding me was not as exciting, and everything was boring enough to make you fall asleep at the wheel. Seriously, it was so boring. However, I did find it interesting to see how people lived off the land and how green and luscious the plantations were. It was really neat because you would see random houses on their land, and they'd have maybe cattle or farm animals, and you would just see how these people lived. It was pretty. That was the only exciting part. I didn't even know if I was ever going to see a gas station. It just seems so far between any kind of town. Um, let's see. The song America the Beautiful rang through my mind as I glanced over the scenic landscape. I found my hotel soon enough and unpacked my things. I ate some dinner and fell asleep quickly upon the soft pillows as I was exhausted. Like, I'm driving all day long, like 12-hour days. Stop number 2. I awoke beyond excited as I was just one more state away from my final destination, Chicago, Illinois. I packed my things back into the car and set sail into a territory where I had never been before. I had never been to any of these places. Well, beyond driving wise, I had never driven past Arizona. So this is all like new area for me. And I'm like the farthest I've ever been driving wise alone from California in my home. But it was so fun. Um, I remember how it felt to be so far from home and how I was all on my own. I remember how liberating it felt to embark on a journey I had never been on before, and yet here I was doing it. As I crossed state after state and saw the transition of topography, weather, and lifestyle, I observed how beautiful the land really is. United States is really, really beautiful. As I began to approach Illinois, I could see the skyscrapers looming ahead. And I had lived in Chicago for about 6 months in the rehab in 2006. So I got to explore Chicago. Oh, yeah. Chicago's such a cool town to live in. I could see the skyscrapers looming ahead. It made me recall my days as a staff member teaching new girls how to stay sober and start a new life with God. So I was a staff member at that time in this program called New Life for Girls. And as part of the program, you go in as a new person in the intro. Then you go off to Dover for your main training for about a year. Then you spend about another 3 to 6 months as a staff, turning all that you've learned into new girls coming off the street and giving them love and guidance. And hopefully they make it too and form a new life. So I chose Chicago and I served about 6 months in Chicago as a staff, not paid, just volunteer. So I can see. I recalled all my happy moments with Jennifer, like when we would escape and go exploring throughout Chicago. So here I am picking up Jennifer, and Jennifer and I met in the program. She was staff above me when I was a student going through the program. And so now we connected and clicked, and we both went off to Chicago together and clicked even more. We were the only two California girls in the house. And so we just had so much fun because as a staff, you had so much more freedom. And you could go off and do whatever kind of you wanted for a few hours. And so we had so much fun. So, so we were, okay. I recall all my happy moments with Jennifer, like when we would escape and go exploring through Chicago. I was thrilled to be visiting one of my favorite places, Chicago, Illinois. I soon found the house that I was allowed to stay in for free. It was part of the New Life for Girls program and was maintained by Miss Pam, who was one of my former leaders. The house was more of a victory house. Oh, yeah, I guess that's what they called it. That's what they did call it, a victory house. It was more of a victory house that housed girls who had moved on further from the program. Oh, I see. Okay. I didn't explain that very well. They termed it victory houses because it's an opportunity for you as a student to go into staff and I guess become victorious because it's your next step on to maybe getting a real job. You could stay there pretty much for free. Yeah, pretty much for free. And you could work there or you could work anywhere. But it was it was it was a way to get you back to that step to be victorious in your life and successful. There was all kinds of intro centers that were like that. Staff would transition back, or students would transition back into staff, and then they would transition back into the real world. Um, let's see. Girls that had jobs and just needed a place to rent. So just like I was saying, there was a bedroom that I could stay in for the night. Oh gosh, I'm not even explaining. God, this is terrible. So when I went to Chicago, I stayed the night and then the next morning I got Jen out of her apartment. So that's what I mean. Gosh, I traveled into Chicago all by myself and there was this victory house where there were girls. It was all just girls who were working and building their life and getting out. So that's all that was. There was no students doing any of that. It was just all girls who had graduated and just needed a safe place to stay and live while working and getting their life back together. So I stayed there. Mrs. Pam operated an intro center and then also this victory house. So I stayed in the victory house. I remember. I called Jennifer and told her that I had arrived. So she's at her apartment, right, with this guy that she wants to leave. So I had arrived in Chicago, told her I was here. She was thrilled and assured me that she would be ready the very next day. As I laid my head on the pillow on the other side of the country from my home so far away, I was happy and content. I just drove from California to Illinois across 7 states to pick up my best friend. Joy filled my heart as I fell asleep that night. The next morning, I woke up to a beautiful sunrise peering through my window. I quickly called Jennifer and got ready. I packed up and drove over to Jennifer's apartment with the help of 2 other women, Mrs. Pam being one of them. I found her apartment easily enough and parked my car in the alley. Like there's no parking in Chicago. It is hell trying to find parking. So most of the time, if you're unloading, loading, you can go into the alleyways, put your hazards on, and you can just get your stuff done. But people will honk at you, so you have to park close to the wall. Like it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's so stressful. It's very stressful. Chicago has horrible parking, as any person who has ever been to Chicago would know. And moving is an absolute nightmare in such a compact city. Jennifer lived 3 stories up. And there was no elevator. No elevator, just the stairs. Imagine moving 3 flights up and down with all your furniture on stairs. And they're tight and narrow stairs, and they're steep. It's insane. No elevator, which meant we had to take all her belongings down the stairs that were tightly wound that you had no room to see in front of you. It was so sketchy and dangerous. And we had to hurry, mind you. We had to hurry to make sure that we got in and out of there before her boyfriend showed up. Because that was the biggest fear. The ladies and I entered her apartment only to find her not at all packed and completely unprepared. We barely had time to move her out before her boyfriend came back home. Panic quickly set in. Like, Jennifer had to be careful. She had to be careful not to like make it obvious that she was leaving, right? So she couldn't like have all these moving boxes around and be completely ready. So she slowly over time, as we were building up to this plan, she would eliminate things, and then she would put things into piles so that she would know that when moving time came, we would grab that suitcase and put it all in there. We would grab this, grab that, put it all in there. Grab anything that she had pretty much planned on taking. And we stuffed my car to the brim. And we also took her 2 cats in carriers. Let's see. The ladies and I entered her apartment. Yeah. So, okay. Together, we helped Jennifer pack up all her belongings and take them downstairs to my car. Being the excellent packer that I am, and I don't let anybody pack, I have to pack it because I am a Tetris at packing. I am the master packer. I am serious. So I'm going to pack my car because I know every corner and cranny of my car anyways. As Jennifer's things started piling up downstairs, I realized that she had to choose what was most important enough to take with her. Because, yeah, she was starting to take way too much. And I'm like, you've got to choose what's most important. You're going to have to leave a lot behind. Let's see. I left enough room for her 2 cats to sit in their cage so they would be comfortable enough. Jennifer finally came down with Miss Pam and the ladies helping along, as well as her 2 cats, and together we loaded up the car. We said our goodbyes and gave long hugs to each other. Jennifer and I had a long journey back to Nebraska, and we had to go, leaving no time for us to stay and chat, really. On the way back to California, Jennifer went through the entire handbook of emotions. It was very difficult for me to see her dealing with such pain, confusion, and fear. Yet I had to push through and keep driving us back to California. I encouraged her, and together we prayed, laughed, and sang throughout the journey back home. We reached Nebraska promptly and checked into the hotel. We unpacked her things together, got the cats situated, ate, and then fell asleep. We had to leave to Utah the next day. So it's 2 minutes into the hour, and I'm going to stop here because I only keep you guys for an hour. So let me put my marker here and we will begin. So that is part of chapter 7. The journey continues all the way as we make it to California. It's a great rest of the story for next Tuesday to end on. If you ever get a chance to travel across the United States, do it. Our country is so beautiful. And there's nothing like driving in a car across the United States and seeing it just that close. So we will resume. We're already into March. Can't believe it. We're already going to be into March. So we will resume next Tuesday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. And if you want to watch some of the other podcast episodes that I've done already, feel free. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. And you can buy my book on Amazon, Dragonflies and Demons. You can buy it on Amazon or do a Google search for your platform. But thank you for supporting me. And I hope you don't go back to watching the orange, ugly one that's going on right now. Go watch Nature Channel. Put on a movie. Do anything you can not to turn it to him. You're going to find out on the news anyways tomorrow. So you're saving yourself a lot of headache and stress and anxiety, at least in my opinion. He's not worth it. So have a good evening. Thank you for spending this hour with me. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.